Blackout. The city remained perpetually shrouded in twilight, the once vibrant neon lights replaced by flickering gas lamps that cast long, eerie shadows on the cracked pavement. We were ghosts haunting the streets we once knew, forever marked by the night the shadows fell. The whispers intensified, echoing through the empty streets, slithering into our ears and twisting our thoughts. They were no longer just a chilling murmur, but a symphony of malice, a chorus of nightmares orchestrated by the unseen entity. Each insidious word chipped away at our sanity, leaving behind a hollow shell of our former selves. My friend Jane clutched my arm, her wide eyes brimming with fear. "Do you hear them too?" she asked in a trembling whisper. I nodded grimly. We quickened our pace through the abandoned streets, hoping to find some respite from the ominous sussurrations. Sleep became a forbidden luxury. We huddled together in the abandoned library, the only place that offered a semblance of sanctuary. Old newspapers and books were strewn across the floor, remnants of a once vibrant and bustling place of learning. Now it lay cold, dark, and empty just like the rest of the city. We pored over ancient texts, searching for the mythical weapons and forgotten spells that could vanquish our foe. Our days blurred into nights, fueled by fear and desperation. "There must be something here, some key we're missing," I muttered as I tossed another useless book aside. Jane placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "We'll figure this out," she said. "We can't let that thing win." Her eyes burned with defiance behind the exhaustion. I nodded, grasping at that faint sense of hope through the shroud of despair that threatened to smother us. The entity became bolder, no longer content with mere whispers. It began to manifest in fleeting glimpses, a wisp of smoke, a flicker of darkness, a disembodied claw reaching from the shadows. With each encounter, the icy fingers of terror wrapped tighter around my heart. Jane, usually so brave and stoic, began to unravel before my eyes. She would flinch at the slightest sound, whimpering and grasping my sleeve like a frightened child. I feared we were both slipping into the endless abyss of madness, and there would be no return from its depths. We fought back, the library becoming our battleground. We chanted protective incantations found in ancient pages, our shaky voices echoing through the cavernous ruins. I inscribed symbols of power on the peeling walls while Jane lined the doors and windows with salt and herbs. The drafty room hummed with energy as we transformed the once peaceful space into a fortress against the encroaching darkness. But even as we worked, the whispers continued to slither and writhe around us. Jane began to weep quietly. My hands shook as I painted a last warding sigil across a boarded-up window, our last line of defense. The entity was a cunning adversary, adapting to our tactics, shifting its form to evade our attacks. It exploited our weaknesses, playing on our deepest fears, driving us to the brink of madness. We were locked in a deadly dance, each victory a Pyrrhic one, each wound a reminder of our vulnerability. Our safe haven compromised, Jane and I fled into the moonless night. The city transformed into a terrifying labyrinth of shifting shadows and skittering sounds. Jane screamed suddenly as a dark mass swooped towards us. Acting on instinct, I pulled her close and whispered a protection spell. A glowing shield erupted around us and the entity shrieked as it made contact, dissolving into wisps of greasy smoke. "It knows where we are now, we have to keep moving," I shouted over the renewed cacophony of whispers. Blindly we ran, seeking another sanctuary from the unrelenting evil that pursued us. We came across an abandoned subway station, its rusted turnstiles standing sentinel at the entrance. Taking a deep breath, we descended into the dark, close depths. I ignited a makeshift torch, the flickering light illuminating tiled walls scrawled with eerie graffiti. The rays could not penetrate the tunnel leading off into pitch darkness. The whispers reverberated, seeming to originate from that unseeable void. Jane slumped against the wall and buried her head in her hands. I squeezed her shoulder, my voice ragged with effort. "We just need to rest for a bit. Try to sleep, I'll keep watch." Jane nodded silently, her eyes brimming with tears of defeat. Seeing her battered spirit, my own courage wavered. Perhaps what we faced was beyond hope. Perhaps the madness would inevitably subsume us both. I shook my head sharply, dismissing the insidious thoughts the entity slipped into my mind. I could not give up. Too much depended on my strength. Jane's life was now in my unreliable hands. One night, as the moon cast an ominous glow on the city, the whispers reached a fever pitch. They converged into a single, horrifying voice, booming through the streets, shattering windows and shaking the very foundations of our sanity. The entity was upon us. I awoke with a scream as an ear-splitting roar filled the heavy air. Jane was on her feet in seconds, eyes wide and unseeing. I could not tell the difference between her shrieks of terror and the deathly wails of the entity. Together, they composed a symphony of madness and despair rapidly threatening to overwhelm me. Somehow I got my trembling limbs to obey me and dragged Jane towards the subway tracks. An insane plan was forming amidst the chaos in my mind. It was our only chance, though likely doomed to fail. Still, sitting here passively awaiting our gruesome end was not an option I could accept. The deafening cacophony seemed to recede as we entered the dark tunnel on foot. I sent rays of light darting ahead of us at intervals, illuminating rusted tracks stretching into nothingness. The farther we walked, the more muffled the screams of rage from our adversary became. Soon we were immersed in ringing silence and all-consuming blackness. After an eternity of scrabbling through dense, claustrophobic dark, a faint glow appeared ahead. With renewed desperation we stumbled towards that beacon of hope. The weak, watery light revealed a small maintenance station, holding nothing but aged tools and a sputtering emergency lamp. But to our exhausted, shattered minds it was the most welcome of sanctuaries. We collapsed on the grimy floor as the lamp faded out, leaving us in darkness once more. Yet even that seemed preferable now to the terrors of the city and its insatiable ruler. "Do you think it will find us?" Jane's thin query emerged from the void. I sighed heavily. "I don't know. But we're hidden at least for the moment." Jane shifted closer to me. "What do we do now?" Her voice was small and childlike, stripped of all pretense of courage. She was a mere shell, all essential facets of herself eroded away by fear and trauma. I squeezed her limp hand, grounding myself against her broken spirit. "We survive. It's all we can do for now." Cold comfort, yet it was the only truth I had to give. Silence again reigned, yet somehow less oppressive than the smothering darkness we so recently escaped. I focused on Jane's gentle breathing and the distant echoes of water dripping through century-old brick and mortar. We were insignificant specks sheltering in a forgotten cave, hiding like insects from the ravenous world above. For this precious moment, we endured. I jolted awake, unaware I had even slipped into oblivion. The darkness seemed denser, the stagnant air laced with a sickly sweet, decaying odor. Jane shuddered violently at my side, her breath coming in shallow rasps. "It's here," she whimpered. "We can't escape." Cold, implacable will enveloped me, pouring strength into my battered spirit. We would not bow. Not like this, pathetically awaiting destruction huddled in anonymity. If we were to fall, it would be fighting with righteous fury. I hauled Jane to her feet and nearly dragged her stumbling form along the tracks towards our oppressor. Towards the end, be it ours or the world's. The miasma of decay grew as we left the relative safety of our hidden alcove. Soon we were choking, blinded by oily smoke leaching the oxygen from our lungs. Ahead I spied a pulsing crimson glow and knew we had found the heart of the entity's power. Jane suddenly wrenched her arm from my grasp. I turned to see her grinning madly, her eyes reflecting the lurid light as though she were possessed. "All hail the devourer of souls." Her shrill cry echoed through the cavernous space. "Why do you resist? True freedom lies only in oblivion." Cackling, she vanished into the gloaming. My heart shattered as the last flicker of hope died within me. Jane was forever lost, the battle for her soul perished before it had even properly begun. Anger and anguish vied for dominance as I hurtled myself towards the epicenter of evil, determined to salvage victory or die trying. The entity became bolder, no longer content with mere whispers. It began to manifest in fleeting glimpses, a wisp of smoke, a flicker of darkness, a disembodied claw reaching from the shadows. Each encounter chipped away at our resolve, leaving behind a gnawing fear that threatened to consume us whole. Sleep became a forbidden luxury. We huddled together in the abandoned library, the only place that offered a semblance of sanctuary. We pored over ancient texts, searching for the mythical weapons and forgotten spells that could vanquish our foe. Our days blurred into nights, fueled by fear and desperation. The whispers intensified, echoing through the empty streets, slithering into our ears and twisting our thoughts. They were no longer just a chilling murmur, but a symphony of malice, a chorus of nightmares orchestrated by the unseen entity. Each insidious word chipped away at our sanity, leaving behind a hollow shell of our former selves.